The rain-slicked streets of Brooklyn gleamed under the streetlights. But inside the cafe, the world felt like it was unraveling. Ellie, Mara, and Claire, identical triplets, bound by blood and secret, sat in a tight circle, their coffee cups untouched, steam curling into the air like ghosts of their unspoken words. Tonight, their family's fragile truce would shatter, and only one of them would walk away uninvited forever. Ellie leaned back in her chair, her leather jacket creaking as she crossed her arms. At 28, she was the firebrand of the three. Her short, choppy hair and sharp jawline a rebellion against the soft femininity her sisters embraced. She'd always been the one to push boundaries, to question their conservative family's rules. Growing up in upstate New York, the triplets had been inseparable, their identical faces a shield against the world's judgment. But now, as adults, their differences were tearing them apart. Ellie's eyes flicked to Mara, who sat across from her, clutching the hand of a woman named Lena. Lena was everything their family despised: bold, unapologetic, and fiercely in love with Mara. Her dark curls framed a face that radiated warmth. But tonight, her gaze was steely, ready for a fight. Mara, with her long, wavy hair and gentle demeanor, seemed almost fragile beside Lena. But her grip on Lena's hand was unwavering. Ellie admired that Mara's quiet strength, her refusal to let go of what mattered. But Claire, the third sister, was a different story. Claire sat between them, her tailored blazer pristine, her posture rigid. She was the peacemaker, the one who'd always tried to hold their family together. But tonight, her eyes were red-rimmed, her fingers twisting a napkin into knots. "I can't believe you're doing this," Claire whispered, her voice barely audible over the cafe's hum. "You're going to ruin everything." Mara's jaw tightened. "Ruin what?" "Claire, the lie we've been living for years." Her voice was soft but laced with steel. "I'm done hiding who I am." Ellie snorted, leaning forward. "She's right. Mom and Dad's precious family reunion is just a stage for their hypocrisy. They'll smile for the cameras, but they'll never accept us." "Not really." The reunion was the event of the year for the Whitaker family, a sprawling affair held at their sprawling estate in the Hudson Valley. It was a showcase of tradition, wealth, and perfection, three things the triplets had never quite fit into. Their parents, devout and image-conscious, had raised them to be the perfect daughters, poised, obedient, and destined for respectable marriages. Two of the triplets had followed through. Ellie had married Tom, a charming lawyer with a knack for winning arguments. And Claire had married David, a quiet doctor who adored her. Mara, though, had refused to play along. "I'm not hiding anymore," Mara said, her voice trembling but resolute. "Lena's coming with me to the reunion, as my partner." Claire's head snapped up, her eyes wide. "You can't. Mom will lose it. Dad will." She stopped, swallowing hard. "They'll disown you, Mara. You know they will." "Let them," Lena interjected, her voice low and fierce. "Mara deserves to be seen for who she is, not some version of her they've decided is acceptable." Ellie nodded, her lips curling into a half-smile. "Preach, Lena. But Claire's not wrong. This is going to be a war zone. You sure you're ready for that, Mara?" Mara's eyes met Ellie's, and for a moment, the cafe faded away. They were kids again, whispering secrets under the covers, promising to protect each other no matter what. "I'm ready," Mara said. "I've spent too long pretending. I love Lena, and I'm not ashamed of it." The words hung in the air, heavy with truth. Ellie felt a pang in her chest, not jealousy, but longing. She'd married Tom because it was expected, because it kept the peace. But watching Mara and Lena, she wondered what it would feel like to love so fiercely, so openly. She glanced at Claire, who was staring at the table, her face a mask of conflict. Claire, Ellie said softly, you don't have to agree with us, but you have to choose a side. Claire's head jerked up, her eyes blazing. Choose a side. You're asking me to betray our parents or betray you. How is that fair? It's not, Mara said quietly. But love isn't fair. It's just real. The cafe door swung open, letting in a gust of cold air. Ellie's phone buzzed on the table. A message from Tom. You coming home soon? Need to talk about the reunion. She ignored it, her focus on her sisters. This wasn't just about Mara bringing Lena to the reunion. It was about all of them, about the secrets they'd buried, the truths they'd avoided, and the family they'd fought to keep whole. I'm not going to let you do this alone, Ellie said, her voice firm. If you're bringing Lena, I'm backing you up. Mom and Dad can deal. Mara's eyes softened, a tear slipping down her cheek. Thank you, Ellie. Claire shook her head, her voice breaking. You're both going to regret this. You don't know what you're starting. But Ellie knew. She'd always known. The Whittaker family was a house of cards, and Mara's decision was the wind that would bring it down. As the sisters sat in silence, the weight of their choices settled over them like the rain outside. Tomorrow, they'd head to the Hudson Valley, where the reunion would test their bonds in ways they couldn't yet imagine. The Whittaker estate loomed like a cathedral against the Hudson Valley's rolling hills, its white columns and manicured lawns a testament to their parents' obsession with perfection. Ellie gripped the steering wheel of her rental car, her knuckles white as she navigated the winding drive. Beside her, Mara sat with Lena, their hands clasped tightly, while Claire stared out the window, her silence louder than any argument. The reunion was already in full swing when they arrived. Relatives milled about the lawn, their laughter mingling with the clink of champagne glasses. Ellie scanned the crowd, spotting their parents, Margaret and Richard Whittaker, holding court near the gazebo. Margaret's smile was as polished as her pearls, but her eyes were sharp, always watching. Richard, tall and imposing, radiated authority, his presence a reminder of the expectations that had shaped the triplets' lives. Ready? Ellie asked, glancing at Mara. Mara nodded, her jaw set. Lena squeezed her hand, a silent promise. Claire, though, hesitated, her fingers lingering on the door handle. I still think this is a mistake, she murmured. Then stay in the car. Ellie snapped, her patience fraying. But we're doing this. They stepped out, the gravel crunching under their feet. Ellie led the way, her leather jacket a stark contrast to the pastel dresses and pressed suits around her. Mara and Lena followed, their linked hands drawing curious glances. Claire trailed behind, her blazer pristine but her expression haunted. The first hour passed in a blur of polite greetings and forced smiles. Ellie fielded questions about Tom, who'd stayed back in the city for work, while Mara and Lena stuck close, deflecting inquiries with practiced ease. Claire mingled, her charm effortless, but her eyes kept darting to Mara, as if waiting for the inevitable explosion. It came sooner than expected. Margaret's voice cut through the chatter, bright and brittle. Mara, darling, you didn't tell me you were bringing a friend. The word hung in the air like a guillotine. Mara stiffened, but Lena stepped forward, her smile unwavering. I'm Lena, Mara's partner. It's great to meet you, Mrs. Whittaker. The crowd fell silent. Margaret's face froze, her smile twitching. Richard's eyes narrowed, his glass pausing halfway to his lips. Ellie felt the air shift, like the moment before a storm breaks. She stepped closer to Mara, ready to intervene. Partner, Margaret repeated, her voice syrupy but laced with venom. I'm not sure I understand. She means girlfriend, Ellie said, her tone sharp. Mara's in love with Lena. It's not complicated. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Claire flinched, her face paling. Mara lifted her chin, her voice steady. I've been hiding this for too long. Lena's my partner, and I'm proud to be with her. Margaret's smile vanished. This is a family event. Mara, we don't air personal matters here. It's not a personal matter, Lena said, her voice calm but firm. It's who we are. And we're not here to cause trouble, just to be honest. Richard stepped forward, his voice low and commanding. Mara, you will not embarrass this family. If you insist on this display, you can leave. Ellie's temper flared. Embarrass? You're the ones who should be ashamed, acting like love is a scandal. Ellie, stop, Claire hissed, grabbing her arm. You're making it worse. Am I? Ellie yanked her arm free. Or are you just too scared to stand up to them? The argument escalated, voices rising over the stunned silence of the guests. Mara stood her ground, Lena at her side, while Claire tried to mediate, her words drowned out by the growing tension. Finally, Richard raised a hand, his voice cutting through the chaos. Enough. Mara, if you choose this path, you're no longer welcome here. Take your friend and go. The words hit like a slap. Mara's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't waver. If that's what you want, Dad, then fine. I choose Lena. Ellie's heart pounded as she watched Mara and Lena turn to leave, their heads held high. She wanted to follow, to scream at their parents, but Claire's hand on her shoulder stopped her. Don't, Claire whispered. You'll only make it harder for her. As Mara and Lena disappeared down the drive, the reunion resumed, the guests' chatter a hollow attempt to ignore what had just happened. Ellie stood frozen, her anger simmering. Claire's eyes were wet, her voice barely audible. They'll never forgive her. And neither will you. Will you? Ellie didn't answer. She couldn't. The rift between the sisters was widening, and she wasn't sure if they could ever bridge it. Back in Brooklyn, the city's pulse felt like a heartbeat Ellie couldn't sync with. She sat in her apartment, the TV muted, her phone buzzing with unread messages from Tom. The reunion had been 2 days ago, but the echo of Mara's departure lingered like a bruise. Ellie hadn't spoken to Claire since, and Mara hadn't answered her calls. The triplets, once unbreakable, were fracturing under the weight of their choices. Ellie poured herself a whiskey, the burn grounding her. She'd always been the protector, the one who fought for her sisters. But now, she felt powerless. Mara's courage had inspired her, but it had also exposed the cracks in her own life. Tom was a good man, but their marriage was a performance, a compromise to keep her parents' approval. Watching Mara choose Lena had stirred something in Ellie, a longing she'd buried years ago. Her phone lit up again, this time with a text from Mara. Can we talk? I'm at Lena's place. Ellie grabbed her jacket and was out the door in minutes. The city's noise a welcome distraction. Lena's apartment was a small, colorful space in Williamsburg, filled with plants and art. When Ellie arrived, Mara was curled up on the couch, Lena beside her, their hands still entwined. You okay? Ellie asked, sitting across from them. Mara's eyes were tired but clear. Not really. But I don't regret it. I didn't expect it to hurt this much. Lena brushed a strand of hair from Mara's face, her touch gentle. Your parents made their choice. You made yours. That's what matters. Ellie nodded, but her thoughts drifted to Claire. Claire's not handling it well. She thinks we betrayed the family. Mara's face fell. She's always been the one to keep the peace. But this isn't about peace. It's about truth. The conversation turned to the future. Mara and Lena were planning to move in together, to build a life free from their parents' judgment. Ellie envied their clarity. their courage. She wanted to tell them about the doubts gnawing at her. About the woman she'd loved in college and never spoken of again. But the words stuck in her throat, too heavy to lift. When she left Lena's apartment, the city felt colder. The streets emptier. Back home, Tom was waiting, his expression tense. "Where were you?" he asked, his voice careful. "With Mara," Ellie said, avoiding his eyes. "She needed me." Tom sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Ellie, we need to talk about us. About what's been going on with you." Her stomach twisted. She knew this conversation was coming, had felt it brewing for months. Tom was perceptive, too perceptive. He'd noticed her distance, her late nights, her reluctance to talk about the future. But how could she explain that she was unraveling? That Mara's choice had forced her to confront her own. "I don't know what you want me to say," Ellie said, her voice tight. "I'm trying, Tom. I really am." "Are you?" he asked, his tone gentle but probing. "Because it feels like you're somewhere else. Like you're not here with me." The truth was, she wasn't. Not fully. Part of her was still at the reunion, standing beside Mara, wishing she'd had the courage to be as honest. Part of her was back in college, with Sarah, the woman who'd made her heart race in ways Tom never could. But admitting that would mean dismantling everything, her marriage, her family, her carefully constructed life. "I need time," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Tom nodded, but his eyes were sad. "Okay. But don't take too long. Ellie, I can't wait forever." The next day, Ellie met Claire for coffee, hoping to mend the rift between them. Claire looked exhausted, her usual polish dulled. "I can't stop thinking about Mara," Claire admitted. "I should have said something at the reunion. I should have stood up for her." "Then why didn't you?" Ellie asked, her tone sharper than she intended. Claire's eyes filled with tears. "Because I'm scared, Ellie. I'm scared of losing Mom and Dad. Of losing everything. David's family is just like ours. If I support Mara, I'm risking my marriage, too." Ellie's heart ached for her sister, but her anger was stronger. "Mara's our sister, Claire. If you can't stand by her, then what kind of family are we?" Claire didn't answer, her silence a wall between them. As Ellie left the cafe, she felt the weight of their fractured bond. The triplets were unraveling, and she wasn't sure if they could ever be whole again. Ellie's apartment felt like a cage, the walls closing in as she paced. It had been a week since the reunion, and the silence from her parents was deafening. No calls, no text, just a cold void where their disapproval lived. Mara was staying with Lena, rebuilding her life. But Ellie was stuck, caught between her loyalty to her sister and the life she'd built with Tom. Tom was patient, but the cracks in their marriage were growing. Over dinner, he tried to bridge the gap, his voice gentle. "Ellie, I know you're upset about Mara, but we need to figure out what's happening with us." Ellie pushed her food around her plate, her appetite gone. "I don't know how to explain it, Tom. I'm just lost." He reached for her hand, but she pulled away, the gesture instinctive. His face fell, and for the first time, Ellie saw the depth of his hurt. "I love you," he said quietly, "but I can't keep pretending everything's fine." The words echoed Mara's at the reunion, and Ellie's chest tightened. She wanted to tell him about Sarah, about the part of herself she'd buried to fit into her parents' world. But the fear of losing him, of losing everything, kept her silent. Instead, she threw herself into work, her job as a graphic designer a distraction from the chaos. But even there, her thoughts drifted to Mara and Lena, to the life they were building. She envied their freedom, their refusal to compromise. when Mara invited her to a small gathering at Lena's apartment. Ellie jumped at the chance, desperate for connection. The gathering was intimate. Just a few of Lena's friends, artists and activists who lived unapologetically. Ellie felt out of place at first, her leather jacket and guarded demeanor a contrast to their warmth. But as the night wore on, she relaxed, drawn to their stories of love and resilience. One woman, Jess, caught her eye, a painter with a sharp wit and a smile that made Ellie's pulse quicken. "You're Mara's sister, right?" Jess asked, handing Ellie a beer. "You've got her fire. But there's something else. Something you're holding back." Ellie laughed, caught off guard. "Is it that obvious?" Jess shrugged, her eyes kind but piercing. "I've got a knack for reading people. You look like you're carrying the world." The conversation flowed easily, and for the first time in weeks, Ellie felt seen. Not as a triplet, not as Tom's wife, but as herself. When Jess mentioned her own coming out, Ellie's heart raced. She wanted to confess, to tell Jess about Sarah, about the love she'd buried. But the words stayed locked inside, too dangerous to release. When she got home, Tom was asleep, the distance between them palpable even in the dark. Ellie lay awake, her thoughts a tangle of guilt and longing. The next morning, she called Mara, needing her sister's clarity. "I don't know what to do," Ellie admitted, her voice raw. "I love Tom, but it's not enough. Not anymore." Mara was quiet for a moment, then said, "You don't have to stay in a life that doesn't fit. Ellie, you taught me that." The words hit hard, forcing Ellie to confront the truth. She'd been living for her parents, for Tom, for everyone but herself. But change felt impossible, a mountain too steep to climb. Meanwhile, Claire was unraveling. She'd been dodging Ellie's calls, her guilt over the reunion consuming her. When she finally agreed to meet, it was at a park near her Manhattan apartment. The air was crisp, the leaves turning gold. But Claire's face was pale, her eyes hollow. "I went to see Mom and Dad," Claire said, her voice trembling. "They're acting like Mara doesn't exist. They've already rewritten the family narrative." Ellie's anger flared. "And you're okay with that?" "No," Claire snapped, her voice breaking. "But I don't know how to fix it. David's family is pressuring me to stay quiet, to keep the peace. I feel like I'm losing everyone." Ellie wanted to scream, to shake Claire out of her fear. But she saw the pain in her sister's eyes, the same pain she felt. "We're still here, Claire," she said softly. "But you have to decide what you're fighting for." As they parted, Ellie felt the weight of their fractured bond. The triplets were drifting further apart, and she wasn't sure if they could find their way back. Ellie stood at the edge of a decision, her life teetering like a tightrope walker. The city's hum was a constant reminder of the choices she hadn't made, the truth she hadn't faced. Mara's courage had lit a fire in her. But it was Jess's words at the gathering that kept burning. "You look like you're carrying the world." Ellie was tired of carrying it. She started spending more time with Mara and Lena, drawn to their unapologetic love. Their apartment became a refuge, a place where Ellie could breathe. Jess was often there, her presence both comforting and unsettling. One night, over wine and laughter, Jess leaned close, her voice low. "You ever think about what you really want, Ellie?" The question lingered. Following Ellie home, Tom noticed the change in her, the way she seemed lighter yet more distant. "You're different," he said one evening, his voice heavy with resignation. "I don't know if I'm part of this new you." Ellie's throat tightened. "I don't know either," she admitted. "But I need to figure it out." The next day, she met Jess for coffee, her heart pounding. Jess's easy smile put her at ease, but her questions cut deep. "What's holding you back?" Jess asked, stirring her latte. You're not happy. Ellie. I can see it. Ellie stared at her coffee, the steam blurring her vision. I loved someone once, she said finally, her voice barely audible. Her name was Sarah. We were in college. I ended it because I was scared of my parents, of what it meant. I married Tom to prove I could be normal. Jess reached across the table, her hand brushing Ellie's. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. The touch sent a jolt through Ellie, awakening something she'd buried for years. She pulled her hand back, overwhelmed. I'm married. Jess. I can't just. You can. Jess said gently. You can choose yourself. The words echoed Mara's, and Ellie felt the ground shift beneath her. She spent the next week in a haze, wrestling with her feelings. She loved Tom, but it was a love built on obligation, not truth. The more she thought about Sarah, about Jess, the more she realized she'd been living a lie. Meanwhile, Claire was spiraling. She'd stopped going to family events, her guilt over Mara consuming her. David tried to support her, but his family's expectations weighed heavily. We can't get involved, he told her one night. Your parents made their choice. We have to protect our life here. Claire's eyes flashed with anger. Protect what? A life where we pretend Mara doesn't exist. The argument escalated, leaving Claire shaken. She called Ellie, her voice trembling. I can't do this anymore, she said. I need to see Mara. I need to make this right. Ellie arranged a meeting at Lena's apartment, the three sisters together for the first time since the reunion. Mara was wary, her hurt still raw, but Claire's tears broke through. I'm sorry, Claire said, her voice breaking. I should have stood up for you. I was scared, but that's no excuse. Mara's eyes softened, but her voice was firm. I needed you, Claire. You chose them over me. I know, Claire whispered. But I'm here now. I want to fix this. Lena watched quietly, her presence a steady anchor. Ellie felt a surge of hope, but it was tempered by her own turmoil. She wanted to tell her sisters about Jess, about the truth she was finally facing, but the words wouldn't come. As the sisters talked, the air grew lighter, their bond tentative but mending. Claire promised to confront their parents, to demand they acknowledge Mara. Ellie promised to support her, but her thoughts were with Jess, with the life she could have if she were brave enough. That night, Ellie called Jess, her heart racing. Can we talk? She asked. Really talk? Jess's voice was warm, inviting. Anytime. Ellie. I'm here. As Ellie hung up, she felt a spark of courage. The triplets were finding their way back to each other. But Ellie's journey was just beginning. She knew what she had to do, but the path ahead was uncertain, and the cost would be high. Ellie stood outside Jess's studio, the Brooklyn skyline glittering behind her. The air was crisp, carrying the promise of change. She'd spent the past week wrestling with her decision, her conversation with Jess replaying in her mind. Tonight, she would tell the truth to Jess, to herself, and soon, to Tom. Inside, Jess's studio was a riot of color, canvases strewn with bold strokes and raw emotion. Jess greeted her with a smile, her paint-splattered jeans a contrast to Ellie's polished leather jacket. You look nervous, Jess said, setting down her brush. I am, Ellie admitted, her voice unsteady. I need to tell you something. Jess listened as Ellie poured out her story. Sarah, the love she'd lost. Tom, the life she'd built, and the fear that had kept her silent for so long. When she finished, Jess took her hand, her touch steady. You're not alone in this, Ellie. Whatever you choose, I'm here. The words unlocked something in Ellie, a courage she hadn't known she possessed. She leaned forward, her lips brushing Jess's in a tentative kiss. It was brief, but it felt like coming home. When she pulled back, Jess's smile was soft, her eyes bright with understanding. "I need to talk to Tom," Ellie said, her voice resolute. "I can't keep pretending." Jess nodded. "Do what you need to do. I'll be waiting." The conversation with Tom was harder than Ellie imagined. They sat in their living room. The space that had once felt like theirs now heavy with tension. "I haven't been honest with you," Ellie began, her hands trembling. I'm not straight, Tom. I never was. I married you because I thought it was what I was supposed to do." Tom's face was a mask of pain, but he didn't interrupt. When she finished, he took a deep breath. "I knew something was wrong," he said quietly. "I just didn't want to believe it was this." "I'm so sorry," Ellie whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You deserve better." "So do you," Tom said, his voice breaking. "I love you, Ellie, but I can't be what you need." They agreed to separate, the decision both heartbreaking and liberating. Ellie moved into a small apartment in Williamsburg, a few blocks from Lena's place. Mara and Lena welcomed her, their support a lifeline as she navigated her new reality. Meanwhile, Claire was taking her own steps toward redemption. She'd written a letter to their parents, demanding they acknowledge Mara or lose her, too. When she showed it to Ellie and Mara, her hands shook. "I don't know if they'll listen," she said, "but I have to try." Mara read the letter, her eyes filling with tears. "Thank you, Claire," she said, pulling her sister into a hug. "This means everything." The sisters spent the evening together, their laughter and tears a balm for old wounds. Ellie shared her decision to leave Tom, her feelings for Jess. Mara's eyes lit up, her pride evident. "You're finally choosing yourself," she said. "I'm so proud of you." Claire, though, was quieter, her own marriage strained by her defiance. David had supported her letter, but his family's disapproval was a constant pressure. "I don't know if we'll make it," Claire admitted. "But I can't keep living a lie, either." The triplets were rebuilding their bond, but the cost was high. Their parents' response came a week later, a curt email from Margaret, refusing to reconsider. "You've made your choices," it read. "We will not condone this behavior." The rejection stung, but it also freed them. Mara and Lena planned a commitment ceremony, a celebration of their love. Ellie invited Jess, her heart lighter than it had been in years. Claire, though, was still caught between worlds, her loyalty to her sisters at odds with her fear of losing David. As the ceremony approached, Ellie felt a sense of purpose. She was done hiding, done compromising. The triplets had lost their family's approval, but they'd found something stronger, their truth, and each other. The rooftop glowed with string lights, the Brooklyn skyline a backdrop to Mara and Lena's commitment ceremony. The air was warm, filled with laughter and music, a stark contrast to the cold rejection of the Whitaker reunion. Ellie stood beside Jess, her hand in hers, feeling the weight of her new life settle into place. Mara and Lena exchanged vows, their love a beacon for everyone there. Claire, standing nearby, smiled through tears, her heart torn but healing. The ceremony was small, intimate, filled with the people who'd chosen to stand by them. Ellie's eyes kept drifting to Jess, her presence a reminder of the courage it had taken to get here. Leaving Tom had been painful, but it had freed her to be honest not just with the world, but with herself. She'd started seeing Jess officially, their connection deepening with every conversation, every touch. Claire, though, was still navigating her own path. Her letter to their parents had gone unanswered beyond the initial rejection, and her marriage to David was on shaky ground. His family's disapproval had created a rift, and Claire was grappling with the cost of her loyalty to her sisters. But tonight, As she watched Mara and Lena, she felt a spark of hope. "I'm proud of you both," she told Ellie and Mara later, her voice thick with emotion. "I want to be brave like you." "You already are," Mara said, squeezing her hand. "You're here. That's enough." The night ended with dancing, the rooftop alive with joy. Ellie pulled Jess onto the dance floor, their laughter mingling with the music. For the first time in years, Ellie felt whole. Her heart no longer divided between who she was and who she'd pretended to be. The next week, Claire made her own choice. She sat David down, her voice steady despite her fear. "I love you," she said, "but I can't keep pretending Mara and Ellie don't exist. If your family can't accept them, they can't accept me." David's eyes were sad, but he nodded. "I don't want to lose you," he said, "but I understand." They agreed to take time apart, giving Claire the space to redefine her life. She moved in with Ellie temporarily, the sisters leaning on each other as they rebuilt. Their parents remained distant, their silence a wall. But the triplets were done waiting for approval. They had each other, and that was enough. Months later, Ellie, Mara, and Claire sat together in Lena's apartment, planning a trip to the West Coast, a new start, a chance to leave the past behind. Mara and Lena were stronger than ever, their love a foundation for the future. Ellie and Jess were building something real, their relationship a testament to Ellie's courage. Claire was finding her way, her heart open to new possibilities. The Whittaker family reunion would go on without them, a hollow tradition built on exclusion. Mara had been uninvited for bringing Lena, but in doing so, she'd set them all free. The triplets had lost their parents' approval, but they'd gained something far greater, the strength to live authentically, to love without fear. As they raised their glasses in a toast, Ellie looked at her sisters, her heart full. "To us," she said, her voice steady. "To choosing love, no matter the cost." Mara and Claire echoed her, their glasses clinking. The road ahead was uncertain, but they were together, and that was all that mattered. The triplets, once bound by expectation, were now bound by truth, their love for each other a light that no rejection could dim.